Hi, welcome to the Israel First television program from our studios in Jerusalem. Great to be with you again and bringing you news and a look behind the scenes at what's happening in Israel. And we are still in the middle or near the end or wherever it is of the Gaza war. So it still continues, albeit that, thank God, there are not so many casualties as far as we know. So that's happening. We've just had Pesach, the Passover season, so that's finished. So now you can eat bread again, and the shops now can sell you things with yeast because during Passover everything was covered up.
But funny enough, when you say that, we're like counting every day the Omer, which is a way of looking at our character all the way to Shavuot. Okay, and Shavuot is Pentecost, which is Shavuot is like means the weeks because you count 7 weeks, and Pentecost is like 50. So 7 by 7 is 49 plus the day of Shavuot.
Now in the news we've had the construction project of the Berger Towers in Katamon, which is a district of Jerusalem. We were in that area for 2 weeks. And so we know a little bit about that area. We lived there for 2 weeks. And it's called the Berger Towers, and it's a big new project. Now, the strange thing is, in the middle of all of this, Nathalie, is that normally during a war, there aren't construction projects. For example, in the United Kingdom during the Second World War, there weren't construction halted. The only construction was emergency construction, repairs to buildings. And there are a lot of what they call prefabricated buildings, which are like a box, which when people were without a home, they were put in a prefab, they called them. And in the 1960s, I remember as a young boy, the prefabricated buildings still being used. And this was a big joke for my dad because they were only meant to be there for the war. They were there so people had somewhere to live. So it's strange that in Israel we're having building projects everywhere, massive building construction projects, huge road development works, for example the road to Efrat, massive development works in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem, as well as the light railway having been extended. There are other extensions being built, and we've got this Berger Towers. Critics warn that ordinary Jerusalemites are quickly being priced out of the city. In a ceremony held days before Pesach, the Berger Group marked the beginning of its Berger Towers project in Katamon, Jerusalem. The event celebrated the demolition phase, paving the way for more urban sprawl, otherwise known as high-rise development in Jerusalem. The large-scale project involves the destruction of 95 old apartments with the resultant movement of families who've been there for decades in the area and couldn't afford to live anywhere else. So the newspaper, I believe it was the Jerusalem Post, no, maybe it was Arat Sheva, but anyway, the news is that they're doing this project, but they don't tell you about the people who've been affected, people who've lost their homes and had to move out. The 3 ugly skyscraper towers range from 25 to 30 floors. Prices start at, in shekels, 2,530,000, which is in US dollars about 694,000 US. Of course, ordinary Jerusalemites aren't able to pay this sort of money, even rich ones, never mind the poor people who lived in this area. Meanwhile, critics say it's going to mar the landscape and only benefit the developers. Berger Towers development is fueling inequality in Jerusalem. It's pricing out people and with lower incomes being unable to afford to live in or even access the Katamon area. This creates even more significant disparities between the haves and the have-nots. So
we know that. We see it every day. We know the reality of the people and we know what's happening, and we can see that these people are going to be displaced. They can't afford this kind of high-rise prices, and apartments is not on.
Yeah, and this is happening all over Jerusalem. It's not just happening in Katamon. I just picked the project because it was in the news. In the early 20th century, the British mandated that Jerusalem homes be covered with Jerusalem stone. In fact, the building we're in today for the studio is done with Jerusalem stone to maintain the air of an ancient holy city. And the buildings, the Berger towers, are not maintaining the air of an ancient holy city at all. They're like any other modern city in the world. And even after Israel's independence in 1948, the buildings were done in Jerusalem stone up till the present day. So it really isn't good that they're doing all this high-rise flats, apartments, and there's nothing wrong. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with building and construction. That's very important, but we should be doing it for the people, the ordinary people, and not for just very rich people who may not even use the apartment. The complaint of Jerusalemites is a lot of the rich people are just leaving the apartments empty, so there's whole developments with nobody in them.
You know, when you speak about that, this reminds me, because we were studying about Sodom and Gomorrah, and very often we speak about Sodom, about sodomite, and sodomy, and all this kind of thing. But when you dig to do some research, it was not just that. The people were very selfish, and they didn't want people to come into Sodom without. It was only for the rich. Funny enough, it was only for the rich. So when Lot arrived over there, he was rich, and he was working, and he was a judge. Funny enough, because we find him at the gate of Sodom, which means that he was part of the society, and judges were at the gate of the city. So this is very interesting. But what does happen at the end of Sodom is that God said, no, this is not right, because you are not loving your people. And this is one of the characters that God wants. He wants us to have loving kindness. So when everything is built not on loving kindness but on profit, and not only on profit, it was really like they were going to kill people, and they were, in one way, they were using sodomy for excluding the people, because people knew that it was bad, so they weren't coming. Do you understand? It is not sodomy in itself. It was something to make the people not wanted to come. So it's very interesting, and it's very sad for me to see what's happening in Jerusalem.
Yeah, it wasn't like that.
No,
when we first came.
No, it's not the same city.
To Israel, and Jerusalem was open to everybody. And yes, there was some expensive apartments. Yes, there was some new buildings going on. But the majority of people were able to live in normal apartments, in normal houses, and weren't excluded. And the problem, as Nathalie says, if they're building all this modern high-rise exclusive apartments, is that the ordinary people who lived in that area before, which is being demolished as we speak, their homes are being demolished. So, they had a celebration for this, for their homes being demolished, and even that to me sounds wrong. Even that, I know that they weren't in such good state. I understand that, and many people said they were an eyesore. I understand that as well, but they could have been redeveloped if there was the willingness and the attention to looking after people. They could have had those apartments redeveloped.
You're right. And you know what, he reminds me also, the mayor, now he died, the mayor of Jerusalem, who's the president of Israel, who was Rivlin, and he died now. But he was from a family who was like, I think, at least 8 generation Yerushalamite, I don't know how you say it, people who lived in Jerusalem. So again, I tell you, when you read the book, funny enough, of Eliezer ben Yehuda, Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, was a poor place for a long time. There was not very many Jews. The hygiene was not very good. It was not at all what it is now. We are not against the progress, but like, what kind of progress is that? If people who have been living in Jerusalem for a long time, and is the center of Israel, is the center of the life of the Jewish people, is the center of the world, also if we look and dig again in all these things. So it's very important. When you speak about that, it reminds me again about King Solomon. Okay, when we speak about now, like the government should be looking after the people. This is their job, okay? We are giving them a certain power for them to govern the people, so everything will go well for them, which is not happening. It's like there is a lot of oppression, there is a lot of people who are not living well. Again, some salaries are cut down now because of the war, which is like, it's like you have more and more expenses, and now the salaries are going to be cut down. I mean, it's just for teachers. So again, like the teachers now are going to be on strike, which means when you understand that, is like parents are bringing their kids to school and then they go to work. So if the school are on strike, the parents can't bring the kids at school and the parents can't go to work. And again, it's like, it's not the war anymore, but it's something else because of the war, which is like, do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's terrible right now. It's really bad. Everybody.
And I think this is happening everywhere around the world, but we're noticing it more here.
But people are really suffering.
The inequality and the treatment of people.
I know. So when I was saying that, it reminds me King Solomon. And again, when we dig in all the stories of King Solomon, there was peace. His name Solomon comes from Shalom. And there was peace all around. There was no disease at that time. There was the temple was built. There was peace. People were coming, like the Queen of Sheba and many other people, coming here to see how he was dealing with his country, because they could hear all the beautiful thing that was happening. And there was prosperity. There was peace and prosperity. So when we see what's happening now, is totally the opposite. There is war, the people are not looked after, they are sick, they are handicapped. Again, I was in the street in Jerusalem yesterday and I saw so many people like physical disease, but also neurological, how do you say? Neurologic disease, and you could see, I was a nurse before, so I was looking at all these people just walking on the street, and I'm like, this is not the Jerusalem that we knew before.
No. And we've just had yesterday, before we came in the studio today, we had a big fire, which has meant that many residents were evacuated from their homes. And it says, police evacuate residents as blazes cross Highway 1 towards Jerusalem. Two separate blazes, at least, that erupted near Route 6 and Route 44 crossed Highway 1, KKL, JNF announced. That's the organisation that looks after forests, planting trees. We're preparing for a long event with the firefighters and search and rescue units, KKL, JNF said. Police operated to evacuate residents of several communities as the two major fires raged. Firefighter teams and planes, we saw the planes, and indeed there was ash over here where we live to put out the fires. There were many fire tenders sent to them.
There were ashes all over the garden
Oh,
yesterday and the car.
The Home Front Command's Search and Rescue Brigade was called to assist several hours into the event. Firefighters continued working with trucks and planes to control the fires as they spread northward towards Highway 1. Police evacuated the populations of Bet Meir, Eshtanol and Mali Adumim. Mali Adumim, by the way, is a city.
Mali Adumim?
Yeah.
But this also, it was a fire on the other side.
And the evacuees were transferred to Zara and Bet Mekofa, which is not far from where we're bringing you the program today.
And there was Mesilat Zion, and some houses were destroyed.
Parts of the route were blocked due to the blaze. Israel Railways announced that due to the fires and under the guidance of firefighting authorities, train services on the line to Bet Shemesh were temporarily halted. Bet Shemesh is a big city which houses a lot of people from Jerusalem. Those who can't afford to live in Jerusalem, not surprising after the last story, often live in Bet Shemesh. There was also trains to Lod and Be'er Sheva were also suspended. Commander of the Shalfa region, Assistant Commissioner Kobe Moore, explained the implications of the fire on public safety and arrangements during a special situational assessment. So there was a very big fire, or big fires, coming into the edge of Jerusalem, really. Bet Shemesh being on the southern side of Jerusalem. Now,
southwest.
Now, one of the things that's happening is that, as I say, we have the war, we have all the construction projects. There's also a lot of changes regarding how business is done. And one of the issues is the issuing of airline tickets. Boarding passes and check-in to be scrapped in historic change to airport rules. Facial recognition to be used in booking passes and allowing check-in. Critics very concerned about the loss of freedom, privacy and human rights issues. Airline passengers could soon say goodbye to boarding passes. It's very concerning, all of this. And check-ins under a major overhaul planned by the United Nations aviation body, the UN body in charge. The International Civil Aviation Organization is set to introduce a digital travel system within the next 3 years. This would allow travel without the needs for documentation. I mean, I think that's happening a lot. It's starting to happen with the e-tickets, some people having their airline ticket on their mobile phone. The UN-backed initiative would replace traditional boarding procedures with facial recognition technology. Passengers would instead use a journey pass stored on their mobile phone. So not so dissimilar in one way from what's happening at the moment, having your airline ticket on your phone. The new system would allow travellers to upload passport information to their devices, eliminating the need for physical documents. So listen to this. You wouldn't need, in principle, although it's always advisable to have your passport with you anyway, you wouldn't need in principle to have your passport or your airline ticket. Everything would be on your mobile telephone.
So you won't lose it.
But for a lot of Jewish ultra-Orthodox do not have smartphones, do not have this facility. So it'd be very interesting to see how they would be able to deal with the new system if it's implemented. The changes represent a dramatic shift in how passengers move through airports. Under the new system, passengers will download a journey pass to their phones when booking a flight. The pass will automatically update if changes are made to the booking. Instead of manually checking in, travellers will be identified when they arrive at the airport. So you'll be able to give a wave to the camera and you're on the system through facial recognition. Airlines will be alerted to passengers' presence when their faces are scanned upon arrival. So not just the airport, not just the airline. And by the way, what's happening to all this information about your arrival at the airport, and what does it say? It might take you a picture, but what are they storing with facial recognition? These will be the biggest changes in years, according to Valerie Vial, Director of Product Management at Travel technology company Amadeus. The latest upgrade of great scale was the adoption of e-ticketing in the 2000s. So I can see lots of issues with this, from not just privacy but human rights issues, to
where is all of that going to be
exactly
stored?
it's like,
Yes.
well, who is monitoring all this information? And
Because usually your ticket, you throw it in the dustbin, it's like, okay. But now, if it's all on computers, what do you do with the storage of all this information?
right, and
to who does it go? This is very important.
right. So really we're in very interesting days. The interesting thing with facial recognition is it is being used on a much wider scale than is publicly known, and is being used outside schools, for example. It was introduced during COVID so that the school security would be able to check that people had a vaccination status, but now the cameras weren't taken down, so they're still there. So there's lots of questions that people, especially privacy and civil rights activists, are saying that there's something very, very wrong with this new system. Now, another interesting development is with the Gaza war is the amount of autonomous weapons. Autonomous weapons are robots, drones, anything that doesn't require human intervention,
Direct.
Right, humans to operate, or doesn't require a human to be there, physically be there. So one of the things that they've been using in the Gaza war is a truck called a Rob Dozer, which is a robot bulldozer, and they've called it a Rob Dozer. And they've said it's revolutionizing combat engineering. Basically, it's like the children's toy that you can drive remote control. It's a remote control bulldozer. Critics warn that autonomous weapons are dangerous, do not have moral values, make life or death decisions without human intervention, and may not distinguish between combatants and civilians. These bulldozers are operating. Normally, if it has a human crew, they can see if there's a civilian in the path of the Rob Dozer, or if it's a military person in front of the Rob Dozer. But obviously, if it's controlled from a control room, it's not so clear. The manufacturers of the Rob Dozers are Israel Aerospace Industries. And by the way, this is not the only robotic autonomous weapon being used. There's a lot of others, but this is one that was in the news. We've talked in the past about drones, drone warfare, about drone swarms, about drones being operated in Gaza. It's combat proven, it says, having carried out robotic combat missions. So they're saying that it's already been used in the Gaza war. And it's a robotic version of the IDF Caterpillar D9 bulldozer. It's very well known, especially for activists who usually block their paths when they're carrying out controversial, in their opinion, controversial demolitions. And so when it does that, it's activists will block its path. And it's used by Israel's combat engineers. These kind of bulldozers are usually manned, and you can have several people in the cockpit of the large machine. Not really explain why you need several people. IAI says it can operate on several levels of allowing autonomous independence. It can dig trenches in the field, clear a route in difficult, otherwise impassable areas, and remove large or suspicious objects that are in the path of the Rob Dozer, and move them out of the way. System can be fitted with the means to identify and avoid obstacles. Not really clear what the obstacles are, which can operate in all weather and under all visibility conditions. Again, not really clear how from a screen you can see things in bad conditions. As I say, it's based on this IDF military vehicle, which is also used. And the IAI say that this robust armoured vehicle is used for breaching tasks capable of clearing paths through tough terrain. And we have spoken about, and I've spoken about, autonomous weapons, and there's a lot of moral issues with robots being involved in armed conflicts, whether that be a drone or an actual physical robot soldier that's being used. And there are a lot of concerns from human rights activists as to the morals. They call them, by the way, one of the things they call them, Nathalie, is killing machines, that these things are without any control. Some of them, the drones can think for themselves. And I've spoken about that before, that they've had drones which have been left in the field after a military operation have still been active, because they haven't been, nobody has bothered to collect them, and they've been still looking for targets to attack. So this whole thing is very concerning and something we need to keep our eye on. So it's been great to be with you today. Thank you so much for joining us. There's a lot of information on the website. Please go to the website www.israelfirst.org, and you can see recent programs. You can see the latest news. You can join Nathalie's newsletter. You can order the book that Nathalie's written, The Beauty of the Hebrew Language. And that's there, isn't it, Nathalie? They can get hold of one of those in different languages. It's in English, French, German and Dutch. So you can order the book on the internet. If you have any problems ordering the book, or indeed contacting us or anything, please then, there is an email address on the website, so contact us through the email, and we'll endeavour to get back to you, and let us know where you're watching. That would be very interesting to hear from you, and what's happening where you are. So thank you for joining us again today, and remember, we're the program that looks at the land, the people and the language.